Yeah, okay, good.
4 to something on
4 to
Friday.
7 on Friday, Saturday 11 to 4.
Alright, folks, can we rock and roll here?
Rock and roll.
Okay, last week was not a great night, and I was hopeful that we can accomplish more tonight. It's not going to be a short meeting. And the first order of business is the fact that, yes, it's one in here. First order of business is that we are live. This is WWANHW Alstead, New Hampshire. Okay, so we are online right now, and so keep that in mind, please. And the second thing is that Priscilla is not able to be here tonight, and we need a volunteer to take the minutes.
And I brought straws if there's no volunteers.
But you do such an awesome job.
No, I'm sick and stupid in the head, so I'm not volunteering this time.
Somebody who's done it before.
Okay, moving on to straws.
Do that.
It is very warm in here. How many straws? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I know. 5, 6, 7. I think I just haven't done this since I was a kid.
The person who gets the shorts.
Yeah, no, I know that part. I just
Blank.
Which was trying to decide who's going to take notes.
Right, all the same except for one.
Yeah, I think so.
all right. Let's measure on up here, kids.
Oh, you're kidding.
You don't know who the short straw is?
No.
Ups, Jonathan.
Carolyn was already done. Well, I can't help that. I thought this was fair.
If you will say this for months, but I'm going to.
All right. We need to go over the minutes from the 23rd. Any comments on the minutes from the 23rd?
Did you see my changes?
I saw you sent something out. I did not have a chance to print them.
All the changes were I would like to know what the capitalized spelling of select board is, whether it's going to be one word or two.
Select men. Select men. I heard they don't like select board. Am I correct on that?
Yes, but that may be the case.
Just do what I do. SB. That's what I do.
Okay, it could be SB. A change in spelling of Barbara's last name, and Chris asked that I put in that we discussed ways to document items and issues which we hope to get results in this market.
Which we have. Is that what you're talking about first?
Sorry.
The items and issues that we...
Hope to get follow-up
Okay, so
from the select.
that's the list you're talking about? Or something else, just in general?
Am I talking about?
Not this Chris.
Oh, wrong Chris, sorry. Never mind.
That's the good.
It's the one that Chris said, sure, put it up on the wall.
He said that.
That's what I'm saying. This Chris said, put it up on the wall, you know, when we had that discussion.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's what we're
but
talking
Chris,
about.
H, asked that I add that to the minutes.
All right. Any comments on the minutes? Motion to approve the minutes as amended. Bonnie, second. Sam? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that takes care of that. And I thank you all for making the effort to be here tonight. And again, last week just kind of went from bad to worse. We had people strolling in at all sorts of times, and which couldn't be helped. I mean, they made the effort to be here, and one person who didn't wish to wait left, and that blew the quorum. So that made it tough, so. All right, so we will have much to go over tonight because of the fact that we kind of need to go over some of the things from the select board from the 29th, as well as last night, and that's about it. So there were no minutes from last week to review. So, any questions so far? Okay, let me find my notes from the last select meeting. Holidays. And Chris R. and Glenn, don't hesitate to pipe in. Start at the top there. The police chief update. Basically, they made an offer to the candidate that everyone liked. He's tentatively accepted that offer based on he passed the agility test. Is that what you call it, Chris? Fitness test, and which was age dependent, and they will move forward now with the background check, and he's filling out paperwork to be submitted to the training academy to demonstrate what he's had for training as a police officer beforehand, so that they know what he's got to do, and it will be at least a minimum of what they call the law package, which is basically awareness of all of New Hampshire laws and policies, because he's from out of state in particular. So, but he does live local now. He's in Langdon, so that makes it very nice and convenient as far as that goes. So,
Yeah, I just want to jump in, Jonathan. We decided we didn't have to take notes on when the selectmen's meeting, because that's going to be in the selectmen's minutes, unless it is something particularly relevant to us. Otherwise, reviewed selectmen's minutes. I mean, not meeting, yeah.
totally random question, but what is that little thing that looks like a Roku sitting there?
This?
Yeah.
This is giving me internet access.
Okay.
It's a hotspot, basically.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, I'm not around kids anymore to learn all that kind of stuff, so.
Yeah.
And FYI, there is internet access here if anyone needs the password, you can use our service too.
There is a guest one where I don't think you need a password anymore.
Right. Unless it's been changed, if you don't.
Well, there may be another network that I'd be more than willing to provide anyone the password.
Yeah, there's both.
They should take.
Okay, the HR committee is presenting next Tuesday their report, and it's going to be interesting, I think, and I think it may be pertinent to us because there could be some recommendations in there that impact the budget in terms of whether or not they suggest that we need more staffing in any areas or something. So that will be to be seen. In terms of the selectmen's meetings, I know Glenn goes on a routine basis. I've been going because of the emergency management and committee, and also to get some feedback of the areas that our committee covers for budgets. But I would urge people, if your committee is up, DPW or something, and they're going to be discussing the budget, it really is a benefit to go and hear firsthand what gets said. It's an experience going to these on a regular basis, and not something that I quite continue to do, to be honest. EMSG, we haven't met in a couple of weeks. We went out, a couple of us, I went out with a couple of the firefighters on Friday to Valley Fire and in Bradford, and did a lot of thinking out loud and brainstorming about potential fire trucks in the process for bid. And I think that the fire department is pretty excited about that, and looking forward to that process. The select board did give us a date last week of the end of the year for what the heck did they say as far as that went? They wanted, what do you guys want by the end of last year?
The end of last year?
At the end of the year.
Anything that was going to go on a warrant.
Right, you didn't need the exact dollars, you needed the spec, that's what it was. You didn't need the exact dollars, you needed what was spec'd out for the truck. And the dollars don't need to be set in stone. The exact dollars for the warrant articles will be a not to exceed type situation by the hearing that needs to be done, so we'll be working on that. The other thing that came up in terms of EMSG, they've looked at the fire department budget, which They want a list of equipment and the timing in terms of replacement to justify the equipment line item in their budget. The ambulance budget, there was a lot of back and forth on that over the last week. Jesse came up with the idea, he's the captain of the ambulance squad, of adding in $100 a weekend, $25 a night for 2 people each night, so 25 times 4 basically, to cover, because it's getting tough to have coverage on Friday and Saturday nights, and as a result, we're calling in Deluzio or somebody else when nobody's around. And it's kind of the opposite of what people think. You normally think there wouldn't be people around during the week, but it's the other way. We're not getting coverage on the weekends rather than during the week. And so everybody thought that was a good idea, but then they did cut back the paramedic dollars in the budget and a couple of other things, which dropped the original proposal, which was up 6%, down below this year, from this year, down almost 9% from this year. And then we went back and looked at it again and decided, at Glenn's recommendation, that we really needed some more money in there for ambulance repair in case the vehicle went, and a couple of other things, that there wasn't any cushion as such in it. So it's down 3% from this year as of now, and Chris seemed okay with that. One thing that came up today, Chris, that you should be aware of in talking to Jesse, he said he's got 8 new members coming on the ambulance squad, which is phenomenal. 2 of them are paramedics, one's an ITech, and 3 EMTs, and the rest are EMRs, or whatever they call them, the emergency responders. But equipment for them, he's got to stop and think about what he needs for equipment and what the dollars are, both in this year's budget and next year's. So that could have an impact, but in a good way. So that was that. The police department was supposed to present their budget last night, and Marcello sort of kind of asked for an extension because there's no new chief yet, he thought. He was looking for November, but was told October 20th. He did come in last night and asked for a raise for his 2 people this year, before next year's budget went in. And that basically is, how did you leave it with him, Chris, on that?
Noted. Yeah. We're waiting to hear back from HR and what their recommendations are, and there's a lot of money, but we have to figure out how we're going to distribute it. We'll take his recommendation into consideration.
Okay. Let's see, what else? It did come up last week. Silvio Conte doesn't really pertain to us directly. A couple other things from last week. The DRA, I guess, is doing random audits of the assessments that were done. So if somebody knocks on your door and says, they're from DRA, they're really just not. They're checking the assessors to make sure they're doing their job right. So there are people going around doing that. They're looking at starting a Chamber of Commerce. As of last night, there still is no update on pay-as-you-go, no progress there. So if somebody wants to get involved in that, they're certainly more than welcome. There's a advisory committee for the food shelf that has started. They met last night for the first time. Joel went to that.
Not for that.
Pardon?
Sick. He has school bus Ebola.
Oh, okay, so he didn't make it. He was supposed to go. And from last night's notes, let's see what else I missed. The HR committee was asked to provide the police department info in advance, in particular, because they wanted to see where they stood on that in terms of the hiring committee. And so hopefully you will get or have gotten that.
Has been provided.
Okay. We asked for Linda's report to go weekly, but we were told there may not be much change as the bill's paid weekly, and Glenn thought it was important, as did I, but I had a phone call, and that was another thing. I had a phone call on that regard today. I don't know whether you got a rather pointed email in that regard today at all.
I got an email.
And so whether or not we'll be seeing those weekly or not, I don't know.
I think you will be seeing those weekly.
Okay. There was some concern on that. we need a volunteer for the Cold River Local Advisory Committee because Sam is retiring after many years. So if anybody knows anyone who's interested in doing that, let us know. Let the selectmen know. And emergency operations manual, FEMA has changed their format, so they are going to go with a grant for that. It was originally $2,560 budgeted, but they really need $3,000 for that. There was too much cut and paste, although Chris did find an electronic copy of that. So a grant writer will be meeting with the different departments, fire department, DPW, ambulance, et cetera, for input, and the employees will get paid, according to Chris, at a grant rate, not their hourly rate when working on this. They will clock out and work on the grant separately than their jobs.
I think they don't get paid the $25 an hour, that gets contributed to the town, right, Chris?
Yes.
They still make their hourly wage, but
It gets charged to the grant.
it starts on the grant, right? So the employees don't actually get
The town gets
$25 an hour.
credit,
Right.
Okay.
silly grant stuff.
As far as budgets go, I think I mentioned about fire department and ambulance. DPW is still in the works right now. They are coming in on the 20th, so please keep that in mind along with the police department, although that might be a tough night, Chris. Don't you have a heroin presentation or something due that night?
I do.
Isn't there something on heroin that's being presented to the town or something? Somebody mentioned that.
Perhaps,
Okay.
double check and see if we triple booked ourselves.
Okay, so otherwise the DPW may be the 27th, but we've got time on that. General government, there was some discussion last night's minutes on the different things like planning and zoning was one, and a few others that we just never really hit. And the agreement was that the select board needs to work more closely with the AAC on that. So that was about it for the select board's meeting. Any comments on that? I know I rushed through everything, but 2 weeks worth of notes. No comments? No questions?
So are we to reach, is general government to reach out to the select board conversely?
Good question.
Regarding,
Working more closely.
Don't make me talk.
shall I go sit over there? Yeah, if you wanna, set up a meeting with us with any questions or any areas that you feel need to be answered, we can chase down or direct the questions to you guys. Or if you wanna go through the budget and just redline the heck out of it and send us a copy and say, what's up with this? We can forward that on to department heads and ask for questions and make sure they get back to
I
us.
think we've sort of answered that question.
I think, yeah, we got most of, because it's not for departments. For general government is everything that isn't a department.
Okay, or departments of one, I think of them as, you know
Good
what I mean?
point,
Yeah.
good point, gotcha.
But I understand, I think we're saying the same thing in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have any outliers, please hit us up with email.
I think they all responded to Mary Ann very nicely. We're waiting on the questions from the moderator, but she's dealing with a lot of family issues, so but we have not gotten those answers back.
Right.
But I think that's not, and that's not really part of, we really don't have any say on that anyway. They were just questions that we had.
And point of information, the checklist personnel, we do not work for monitors. I think they are independent. Only time the moderator has a say is if two of them leave the checklist committee, the moderator has the power to appoint. Otherwise, if only one leaves, the checklist committee appoints a successor. So their level of independence is very high. And the answer to nobody.
Are people, so is that department gonna make a presentation, like the little leading departments supervisor of the checklist?
I don't know.
We do
fun.
I know, but it's just like Gloria doesn't come in and just like,
It's good fun, but we have no control over their budget, because they're elected, from what I understand.
Right, it's Bobby, I think, is the one that puts that together, I thought.
I don't know, but it seems like it should be presented to the select board because ostensibly Alstead voters could be here and have something to say.
And it isn't just the checklist one, I mean, you
No, I know, that's what I'm
zoning,
saying.
sanitary, the town clerk, the whole
The
bit.
checklist was an issue that we had discussed.
Yeah, we're just using that as an example.
Well, planning and zoning was another one, because all of a sudden there was, something quite high that, which they may have had no control over, but,
I think it was updating the zoning map was the large expenditure. Almost all the other stuff, particularly I can speak for the zoning board of adjustment, is paid for the executive secretary.
Right.
And the rest of it is all compensated by applicants. They have to send out, we have to send out do the advertisement and send out the certified mail and then respond, pay for that. So it's a zero sum. Matter of fact, I think we actually like it.
Planning board is the same way. So their expenses, other than going to the law lecture series, they have a small budget, but, for things like that.
But I don't think my question was answered. Does everybody come in and present their budget, no matter how minuscule?
No.
It may not be a bad idea to have the other groups like you're talking about, or at least a representative from them, show up on maybe the 27th or something like that to present their budgets in a public forum, realizing that most of them may take 5 minutes, but
Right.
open it up for questions.
Because I know that I remember last year, we came down to DPW on one of the times DPW was scheduled, and Bobby had specifically come down to talk about a budget, and the meeting just went all over the place, and, so, I mean, I don't think anybody's unwilling. She was willing.
you've also got, Matt Gillette was here last year to talk about the library budget.
Yes.
Which was, and he came up with his own free will, I
That's true.
think, so, that's another one that's a bigger budget, and even though some of it is reimbursed from the trustees, it's something that should probably be looked at.
So, I'm more interested in making sure we have time to get the bigger budgets addressed in October. So maybe early November, we would schedule a smaller budget sort of hearing meeting. Does that work? Does that make sense?
Yeah. The bigger ones need to be addressed first.
Yeah.
Although, you may want to keep some of the elected officials that have large budgets, like Gloria's or something, separate. On another, or with not a whole bunch of other people, I think.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine how long that, if you lined up 4 or 5 people and we pared down our agenda to what we actually really needed to talk about. That sounded snarky, I apologize.
Well, it sounded practical, depending on your perspective.
It's not even a very good word.
But noted, maybe we'll discuss that and see if we can come up with a plan. But I agree, I think everybody should have to present their budget. They're asking the taxpayers to pay it, and otherwise, it's just lying.
So are you gonna take this on?
I am going to advocate this.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments about the select board's meeting or things like that? Good, we're actually ahead of schedule, I don't know how that happened. All right, let's hope it stays that way. Committee and subcommittee reports, the quarterly reports. I guess there was some talk on that of calculating the tax rate or having some feel of what the potential tax rate might be, or what was the other thing that Joel said he should have a feel for in November roughly?
You're talking about the next quarterly report.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, we were,
Kathleen,
there was going to be something on that.
okay. And we were looking for the SB's input.
Right.
So
Yeah, there was something else besides the tax rate. So, or the revenue, I guess maybe was what it was, so. Chris is multitasking, so I'm not sure he's paying attention.
Chrissy, huh? Next quarterly report?
Yes, comes up last quarter of the year.
Thank you. You're right on it tonight.
I did ask for any ideas and did not get much of a response.
I don't think
much either. I think we had some hope that we'd be able to put this final quarter report for 2015 out in the hands of the voters about the same time or slightly before the tax bill.
Yes.
How it went last year was Jan did the whole write-up, which was really good, I thought, and did basically a projection of what he, a range at least, of what he felt the tax rate might fall into, and turned out to be pretty close. I don't know if that's any value in case the state comes up with some craziness.
Right, and that's gonna be influenced, depends on what you guys apply to push the tax rate down, if you do, if you don't.
Correct.
So that number's really a kind of a gamble.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'd really advocate that, but maybe discussing the process of how the tax rate is set. You know, maybe it's a little like, you know, we just don't sit in a room and roll the dice and pick a number out of the air. There is a process to that. And the nice thing is probably most of that's already written by Dan last year. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's still on our website, and it, like, if that hasn't changed, or not the website, the Alstead site.
Is the town informed ahead of time of things like room and meals distribution or highway block grants? When do we find out about that?
That information probably flows into the office, and when things like that occur, we probably hear about them at a selectmen's meeting. But these are all types of things you're talking about that occur towards the end of the year.
Well, room and meals is supposed to be out by September 15th, according to the statute. And I just wonder, did DRA hear about it and tell nobody else, or was the town actually informed
I don't know.
of these numbers? Because that was 80-some-odd thousand bucks last year.
Wow.
And there was almost a similar size highway block grant. Now that the state has finally adopted a budget, one would suspect, pray, that those numbers might exist someplace. And that would really help us if you're trying to project tax rates.
Understandable.
Then you probably know those anyways, and know the supply is, or when those come out approximately. I mean, the budget just passed with the state, so I'm sure a lot of that.
Yeah.
And there are other things that were significant, like back taxes were very large last year. Was that an anomaly? The $77,000, which seems to surprise some people.
We actually have a lot of income, yes, from
that.
yeah.
And was that unusual? The tax collector should have some feel.
Was it back taxes or the interest on back
The
taxes?
interest.
Interest on back taxes.
Yeah, interest and penalties, yeah.
Both. And what was the other one? Investment income was $115,000 last year. Do we have any indication of what the investment income is running this year?
That was one of the things we talked about last week, which was, the revenue side of things that, we don't necessarily see the revenue reports, and that's something that needs to change. We'll talk more about that later on. So. All right, anything in terms of quarterly report? General government. I've got a couple things on the agenda. The transparency on items lumped together, like the cell phone bills, that's on that list of fun things to do in our spare time. Items where the department have line items, the phone bills, and they don't see them, and then the other areas not yet discussed. Planning and zoning, employee benefits, and there are other ones that need to be taken into account by general government as far as that goes. And the first two things, the transparency and the items, we can talk about more when we talk about that list of that running hit list.
What was the green zone? I know I'm late.
Thanks. One
It wasn't, going back to the selectmen's meeting, I did vote, we did agree that we would put that online.
Correct. I just wanted to go over it today because I changed the format and added the two columns we talked about on, what do you call it, the responsibility to date added. Who was the date added? Pardon? Oh.
Thank you.
Would you just turn up planning and zoning?
Or, you got, I'm just gonna second. I'm gonna get George to
Follow on. I said on last, but it was.
town maps. They requested 1288, it was 1900. I mean, that's, like a third over.
Halfway. Okay.
So, they may not have big budgets, but, I mean, is anybody talking to these people or looking at their numbers? I mean, a lot of stuff that's come in, we've really gone through them line item by line item.
We should talk to all the GG departments. And I think there may be a statutory requirement on it.
May well be. They may not have had any control over it, but, I mean, I think we need to take a look at the budget overall and see what areas isn't anybody looking at, and then, who's gonna look at it.
And we didn't look at zoning the plan.
We did a little bit, but.
Right, but
Can we ask that the general government at least look it over and see what's within, they think is within their realm to
Sure.
do? Okay. All right. EMSG, I think I went through a lot of it already with the police chief status. The ambulance, the police department budget, a group of us have already started marking that up. And that had been provided to Marcello. One other thing about the chief, pardon my country. Is this okay to talk about this package a little bit in terms of, I think you already talked about that at the selectmen's meeting, didn't you? The chief doesn't require.
In general, very general terms.
Right. He doesn't need health insurance, so that's a plus to us, so
We have a little leeway in
compensation,
telecompensation.
which will be good. The City Valley Fire, as I said, was very informative. They had some really good suggestions. They are a small company, privately held, over in Bradford. And they've built a lot of trucks for towns in the area. And what they basically do is purchase a chassis from somebody else, and they deal with Spartan quite a bit. And it's interesting because they were saying the lead time on the chassis can be anywhere from 7 to 9 months, something like that, 7 to 8 months to get the chassis in for them to build the truck on top of the chassis. So you're looking at anywhere from about, I think, 12 to 14 months by the time you get a truck in from the time you place the order. One of the things they suggested, and they fully understood that they didn't have, they weren't the only ones that we were going to talk to. But they did suggest that once, they gave us some ideas on how to write the spec, like don't say you want a light bar on the back. How long do you want the light bar to be? What dimensions do you want it to be? How many bulbs do you want? That kind of thing. Put something in there so that whoever's quoting it for you, one guy doesn't quote a light bar this big, and somebody else quotes a light bar that big. So that you're getting more apples to apples. They also suggested that we send out what's written in advance, and instead of doing a request for quote, do a request for input, and have the other manufacturers look at it and say, yeah, we can do this, or no, you should do that, or this doesn't make sense, and things like that. So there's a lot of thinking out loud. They gave us a lot of direction. Really nice people, interesting place. And it was kind of interesting, too, because they will give the town, I think if we buy from them and we put, I think they said 50% down, 3 to 5% off the price of what they have, in the quote. So that's something to keep in mind, too, because when you're talking about something in the $400,000 to $500,000 range, that's a lot of money. and we do have money in the capital reserve. I did suggest to the fire department that they need to stop and think, if we need spec done by the first of the year, to backtrack in terms of when does that spec need to be written, when does it need to go out for requests for input, when do they need the input back, when do they need to send out the RFP or RFQ, and when is it going to come back? So, do you need those acronyms translated? Just checking. But, so we're meeting, EMSG's meeting tomorrow night, and we'll go through all of that stuff. I didn't make it to the FEMA grade class, unfortunately. I was sick that night, but George Moore did go, and came back with about an 80-some-odd page PowerPoint, which had a ton of info in it, which I've scanned quickly, and so whether or not we'll be able to get anything submitted, because I think they open up in November for applications. And apparently FEMA has changed in that they've changed the grading process to make it more equitable for smaller departments looking for stuff. But whether or not we have time between now and the end of the year to write the grant proposal on top of the spec for a fire truck is probably pushing it. So, but that doesn't mean we can't go after grants for some of the things that might go on that truck. So, and I did ask the fire department to please put together a list of what they have that can equip the truck and what they're going to need to equip the truck, so that can all be laid out in detail. So there's no oopses. Excuse me, although I don't think we'll be as specific as they were last year with the police car. So
One question I have with respect to these grants, do we have to include in the raise and appropriate placekeeper?
Raise and appropriate the full amount.
Yeah.
that will be a good question if you have the money in the capital reserve already.
No, you can't use that.
Can't use that for grant?
Equipment, yeah.
Okay.
Only for equipment.
What's only for equipment?
For like a truck, you can't buy like we couldn't even buy the Scott
Right,
models.
okay.
Or
Yes, I agree.
But
What I was thinking was if we went after a grant for the truck, which would be
Right,
obviously a big
exactly.
ticket item. You've already raised and appropriated it.